Hello, and welcome to Waves of YA, a podcast focused on young adult literacy, brought to you by the Ocean County Library's Teen Literacy Workgroup.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Waves of YA. This episode, we are going to be discussing sci-fi or science fiction in YA literature. My name is Summer. I'm the librarian at the Long Beach Island Library.
My name is Ryan. I am the librarian at the Toms River Library.
And I'm Chris. I am the librarian at the Island Heights Library.
Okay, so let's jump right into it. So, first of all, I think we should talk about how we spell sci-fi. Is it S-C-I-F-I, S-C-I-F-Y, or something else? What do you guys think? What's your preferred spelling?
I would say SCI-FI, just for my own personal preferences for spelling, but not like the Sci-Fi Channel where they change it to SYFY, because that's just ridiculous.
SYF, no, yeah, that's not.
Yeah, that's not anything.
Where's the C? There should be a C somewhere in there.
Yeah.
I oscillate between the two.
I am very much like SCI-FI of like it's short for science fiction. Like, keep it simple.
Oh, that makes sense. Sometimes I do like that one, or I do put a Y on the end, but I think you're right. Science fiction. There's eyes all around. Cool. All right. Now that we've got that settled, what was your guys' introduction to sci-fi?
I started, I think the earliest thing I knew being sci-fi was Star Wars, because when I was a kid, my babysitter's husband loved Star Wars. So he had like all of the collectible action figures like in rows on shelves on the wall that you could not touch, like hanging models, like it was a lot happening. But then also like the toys that we could play with. So I was like, I have no context for who these characters are that I'm like playing with their kid with. So my parents let me watch Star Wars because they're like, yeah, you keep asking who these like people are.
Yeah.
And my parents aren't Star Wars or science fiction people. So like they just set me up in the other room with like the VHS and a TV and are like, yeah, go ahead and watch it. It's probably fine.
Yeah, I agree. My dad definitely had Star Wars on when I was a kid, and it sort of was just background noise for me. Additionally, Men in Black was on a lot in my house. And I was just talking about this the other day, how obviously that movie has a lot of adult references, but as a child, you have no context for anything. So all of that went right over my head. I was just like, cool, aliens, love that. Additionally, there was this TV show. I'm trying to remember what it was called, but it was this alien kid, and he lived on like this space station, and he went to school with other aliens. And I'm trying to.
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
Is it a cartoon?
Yes.
Oh,
Someone in Space.
Lloyd in Space. That's what.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
That was
Lloyd
an
in Space.
excellent.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Show.
Yeah.
And they had so many really interesting concepts. Like there was an episode where he has this crush on this girl, but she has two heads, and one head is like this cute, nice girl, and the other head is like this really mean, like not nice girl, and he has to deal with that. There's also an episode where there's this new kid who all of them are trying to figure out if this alien kid is a boy or a girl, and then they discover that this type of alien gets to choose if they're a boy or a girl when they turn like 12 or 13. And so they're all trying to convince him like, oh, you should choose to be a boy or you should choose to be a girl. And then at the end, he's like, I picked, but I'm not telling. That's my business.
Yeah, that's great.
That was such a cool show.
Yeah. For me, it was similar. Like there were toys for Star Wars and things like that, but they were like Lego toys. So they had like the sets and stuff. So I had no idea who the characters were for anything. I just like building them and playing with the figures and stuff. And then I think it was like 10 or 11, like they were re-showing it on TV, or we had the VHS or something like that of Star Wars. And then, so I watched that, and then that got me really like hooked in to both Star Wars and science fiction as a whole. And I feel like that's like a really easy gateway to get into science fiction, like especially at like 10 or 11 or 8 or 9, like that younger age, because like the way it's written and it's very simple to understand. Like there's nothing that really, like to your point, Summer, like Men in Black, like the jokes aren't going to go over a younger kid's head or anything like that. So I think for that, like Star Wars is like a really good, simple introductory way to get into science fiction.
Yeah,
So,
and there's also a lot of Star Wars novelizations as
Mhm.
well. So there's a lot
Yeah.
to dig through.
Yeah, like comics, games, video games too, all that stuff.
Summer, you mentioned cartoons. The Magic School Bus, like I always forget it's technically science fiction.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Of like they like it's kind of like some like we're gonna talk about it later of like the blend of like magic, like
Mhm.
Magic School Bus, but like we're going on
Yeah.
science adventures and
Yeah.
like
Hmm.
Yeah, I think I
doing all that
remember
stuff.
I think I remember most clearly the one where they go to space.
Yeah, the
Mm.
first episode that traumatized everybody.
Oh, when what is it? Arnold's cousin
Yes.
visits the class and she's being annoying.
Awful.
She's just being a bad person.
Yeah.
Yeah, Magic School Bus. And what I'm gathering from this is like most of our introduction to science fiction is aliens
Mm.
Yeah,
for the
and it's
most part,
so-
or outer space.
Yeah.
Oh shoot, there was speaking of aliens, there's a book series. It was a kids book series. We had it in my elementary school library.
Animorphs.
Animorphs, yes. I loved Animorphs as a kid growing
Oh, I
up.
forgot about that too.
That's a
Yeah.
good science fiction series.
Which, Sorry.
No, it's okay. Bruce Coville, My Teacher is an Alien series. That's it.
Oh,
Those
okay,
books,
Bruce
yeah.
Coville. That's cool. Do you guys know there's a juvenile middle grade series or author, Christina Applegate, who
Mhm.
has like The Amazing Ivan? She's the
Yeah.
Animorphs author.
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
it is
Yeah.
I
wild.
didn't realize that until
Her-
until recently, and I was
Yeah.
like, oh my God, she made
She's so
Animorphs.
cool.
Which
Yeah.
I never read Animorphs, but I loved looking at the covers
Oh,
in my
Animorphs was
local
my jam as a
library.
kid. Yeah.
I honestly
watched
think
the
I might-
show, and I didn't.
But there's a
read the
show?
book, though. There was a show. So like,
Oh my gosh, I had no idea.
I think I'm the oldest person in this group again. Yeah, there was a show. I want to say like on Nickelodeon or like
Okay.
something
we
like
didn't,
that.
We didn't have cable.
And it
growing
was,
up,
like,
so-
A little scary because it was like, oh, and like
Mm.
The Adventures of Alex Mack. Like there was a lot of like
Mm.
scary government sci-fi shows as well when I was a kid.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a weird
Um,
crossover too.
When I was a
with
kid, Ben 10 Alien Force was a big thing
Hmm.
on Cartoon Network, or maybe it was Nickelodeon. I forget. But yeah, Animorphs, I feel like
Mhm.
is a really good introduction as well because they're chapter books. I don't
Mhm.
know if they're still in print, but I think you can read them
I
for
don't think
free on the.
so.
I think you can read them for free on the author's website.
Yes. Yeah. I think to your point, she said they went out of print, but she put them on free on her website for anyone who wants to read them. And I think we have available the audiobooks. Don't quote me though, on Hoopla last I checked.
I think you're right.
So yeah.
I might have to go listen to those again.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like,
Mhm.
I didn't know anything about them really, except for the basic premise until I was listening
Mm.
to a podcast where the hosts were basically doing a deep dive into the Animorphs series, and so I learned so much about what the series was about, and it's really
Yeah.
intense.
It
Yeah.
is. It's essentially like a war story, but told from the perspective of like child soldiers, you
Yeah.
know, in that
It's
sense.
it's sort of giving
Mhm.
Power Rangers a little bit too.
Yeah.
oh yeah, that's another. Again, I don't
Science
think
fiction,
Yes.
essentially.
I
Yeah.
don't think of them as sci-fi. I'm just like, yes,
Mm.
they were around forever. So that's probably actually my first
Yeah.
sci-fi.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is really interesting because again, we're really seeing our first introduction to science fiction as aliens.
Mhm.
And I feel like as a trend, aliens haven't been popular recently, but I feel like they're coming
Yeah.
back a little bit.
Do you have new or slightly used prom dresses in good condition? Or do you know someone who wants to give away a prom dress? Starting January 2nd, the Ocean County Library invites you to donate your dresses during the annual prom dress collection. Donated dresses will be collected at all of the Ocean County Library branches until February 26th and will be available for free for students in 8th through 12th grade starting in March at our prom dress giveaways. Before you donate, please ensure that your dresses meet the following criteria: short or long styles from the last 5 years, gently used and clean dresses ready for attending prom. Please do not donate dresses with rips, tears, or stains. Also, please do not donate accessories, shoes, or purses. For more details, check out our website at theoceancountylibrary.org Visit your local branch or call us at 732-349-6200. We thank you in advance for your donation.
So,
you guys want to ask the next question?
Yeah, I'll go. So to that point, what are the current trends that you're noticing in current science fiction, whether it's young adult or adult?
I feel like being in a bubble, like you actually read it, it's still on my like TBR list, but Pick the Lock by A.S. King, and then Snow Globe, I didn't write down the author for that. But like being in a bubble, being constantly like on film, people seeing you all the time seems to tie in. And like even with the Hunger Games, like 10 years ago?
Yeah, that constant surveillance.
Like constant surveillance, constantly being filmed, having people see your life, and especially like with the rise of influencers and like all this social media, like we are constantly, even if we're not actively filming ourselves, our friends are filming, strangers are filming other people. There's just a lot of like being monitored in some way, and it's showing up in like the fiction of like the stress and like anxiety that's causing. And we're like,
yeah,
it's a lot to be like someone is constantly like, that's why the Panopticon prison of like you don't know if you're being monitored. It's like a circular prison where like the tower's in the center. So like,
oh, okay,
I forget, it's a Puritan design for a prison that didn't get built, but like you never know if you're being watched. So it's like that pressure of like constant surveillance to be like, we don't need to worry too much about like the prisoners in the Panopticon because they don't know if they're being watched. So they're always assuming they're being watched.
Yeah. And that's a really good way of illustrating how fiction and science fiction specifically mirrors our current anxieties and or our current just like what's going on in the world, which makes me wonder if like in the early 2000s and 90s, was there something going on with the space program that made us think about aliens in space a lot?
Maybe. I mean, I was probably too little at the time. I was
me too.
like,
I remember like I loved the Air and Space Museum, so like there was a lot of like the Apollo movie, I forget which, Apollo 11, I want to say. And then like they were like in the 80s, the Challenger explosion with like the teacher on board that like all the kids saw happen on TV in their classroom in school, exploding. So like, and then those kids getting older and starting to write the social media, like not the social media, the movies and the TV shows of like, that was like a core experience for their childhood.
Yeah.
Okay, so space was on our minds. Space was on our minds then, and being constantly watched is on our minds now. Another trend, obviously, that has been going for a long time is dystopian worlds, which also gives us a lens into our anxieties about our current world, whether it be climate disaster or issues with our society and like governments around the world. Like that's an anxiety for a lot of people in a lot of places. And we like Hunger Games was what, 2010?
Like 2010 or 2009-ish. Like
it's I know I read it
probably
in college,
2010.
but it was earlier than that.
But that trend hasn't broken since then. It's it's still going on. And there's a new YA book that is on my TBR called A Fable for the End of the World, and it's by Ava Reed, and it's sort of it is a sapphic science fiction dystopian large scale contest like the Hunger Games, and it's not trying to replicate the Hunger Games, but it's definitely someone who was a fan of the Hunger Games wrote it,
Did either one of you read the book Feed? I think it's by M.T. Anderson. Yes, yeah.
I have not. No.
So relevant.
Yes, I want to say came out like super duper early, maybe like 2000, 2001, something like that. So like right before we had any social media or like super connected Wi-Fi, internet, stuff like that. So that was, super dystopian. It was using, social media because they would have, I think it was like implants in their head or something like that. Yeah, so it was kind of like that, and they would get the, everything was ads. Yeah, so everything was an ad. So if you looked at like a can of soda or something, then you'd get like 6 ads, buy soda. or if you were talking to your friend about something. So like this is even what technology does now, like it listens to us. Like this was, then it would like record your conversation. So like to your point, Chris, like you're always being watched, you're always being recorded, and that was back then. So like
And
that
like
level of
also the internet being kind of unusable right now.
yeah.
Of like, I am trying to find information. I don't want ads to buy things that aren't relevant to my search. Of like,
Yeah.
we've made like we had like such a cool system, and now it's like it's all ads. I'm like, that's not what I'm looking for.
Ads, money, sponsors. Yeah, it's so much in your face too. That was the other thing too with feed.
Yeah, in your face, and also like the implants are in your brain. Like
yeah,
it's not just, it's literally a part of you at this point. Like you can't escape it because it's in your head.
Okay, and that's feed.
That's
like
feed.
F-E-E-D.
Yeah.
But when was that written?
Let's see.
We're both looking it up.
I'm just curious. I've never heard of it, but I'm the baby, so.
No, it's okay.
2002.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Yeah, so I probably read that like when I would have been 15. So yeah, I read that around that time.
And that actually reminds me.
I read it in college. So
90s.
No, it came out in 2002. So so I read it probably 2009.
Okay.
Because I think I remember like doing something with it for college where it's like, oh, I'll read like some sort of sci-fi dystopian thing. And I was like,
I guess it kind of sounded like Ender's Game to me a little bit. So I thought maybe 90s. But yeah, Ender's Game's another one. We read that in school, which was interesting. I always love when we read sci-fi in school because it was such a nice diversion from the realistic fiction that we read. I think in my school years we read Ender's Game. In high school we read The Giver. In middle school,
The Giver too. Yeah.
Frankenstein, obviously we read in high school. Frankenstein, the original, arguably the first science fiction novel.
Yeah, that's true.
Iconic.
Yeah.
And then she has another one, a less talked about science fiction novel called The Last Man by Mary Shelley, which is sort of a post-apocalyptic novel.
Yeah.
As well. But you talking about Feed reminded me. There's another novel called Feed, which is about zombies, which is another insanely popular science fiction trend. Taps into a lot of our fears.
Yeah.
About
I feel like there's a lull in zombies. Like there was a lot in like 2009, 2010, like that range, especially with like the Walking Dead series too.
Yeah.
Where I felt like zombies were like inescapable of like everything was about zombies and like surviving the apocalypse, like all while I was in college.
Yeah. And novels too, like there was Warm Bodies, obviously.
Warm Bodies.
The one I was thinking of is called Feed by Mira Grant, which is a horror novel.
Oh yeah, Mira Grant. Yeah.
And but they had that movie 28 Years Later that came out recently. And The Last of Us is obviously extremely popular. So I think there has been a lull, but it's still prevalent.
It's still there, but like 28 years later is from 28 days later, so that's just a series that's like chugging along.
Okay.
So, like, I don't think of it as like new zombie content. I'm like, we're just plugging along with that one. But like there was like Pride, Prejudice, and Zombies,
which is an excellent movie. That's an excellent movie.
Yeah, I liked it. Yeah,
it was fun.
Yeah.
John Mabey's Rotten Ruins series, which I really liked, or Mayberries. Those were good. Cirque du Freak with World War Z.
Yeah, that was good.
You know what's a one that I don't see a lot? It's called The Girls Save the World in this one. And it's literally about these girls who are really big fans of a zombie TV show. I forget the name of it, but they go to this zombie fan convention. And at the convention, there's a zombie breakout and they're trying to escape the convention hall while being attacked by zombies and trying to utilize their knowledge from the show. And it's really funny. It's really like there's also like one of the convention booths that they have is like apocalypse preppers, and so they're like a plot line, and it was very fun. And I don't see that one as much, and it's more lighthearted, but that was a fun one for sure.
Zombie Coachella.
Yes,
we talked about it in the horror podcast, and I also called it Zombie Coachella there because I cannot remember the name of this book.
But wasn't it more
like a cooler of?
No, that was more like that's like ghouls.
They were more ghouls, but like they still ate
Yeah,
flesh.
but they
I
ate
know the
and they
cover. I can't think of the
ate
author. Yeah.
But the thing was that ghouls became a known part of society, so they had
Mm.
artificial human flesh that they would make for the ghouls. Oh God, why?
Yes.
I think it's called This Delicious Something.
That sounds right.
Sounds
But I'm like,
familiar. Yeah.
I can
Wait, I'm
only
gonna look.
picture like the cooler and the fact that I just
Yeah.
constantly refer to it as zombie Coachella.
Mm.
I'm looking it up. I'm
It's
gonna
like
figure it
they're
out.
like the zombies are still around. It's just like
Yeah, they've
not as
definitely
in
tapered
your
off.
constantly in your face as
Yeah.
it was. Like I feel like we're swinging back to vampires, especially with like the Interview with the Vampire TV show,
Oh,
which I
Yeah.
can't wait for season
It-
3. I am dying.
It is called This Delicious Death.
Okay.
Okay.
So that's one.
Mm.
Going off of this one, do you have any trends that you really like in sci-fi that you look for,
Mm.
or tropes that you like in sci-fi? For me, while personal opinion, and we're not going to get onto a rant about this, not a huge fan of AI right now. I really like a friendly AI or a friendly robot in fiction. Like there's a YA book called Catfishing on Catnet, where the AI is this little moderator on a social media platform where they share cat pictures, and the AI just loves cat pictures, and it kind of helps this girl in this bad situation. I also love this is not a YA book, but it's a good transitional book. It's very accessible for a YA reader. A Psalm for the Wild Built by Becky Chambers, which has a friendly robot and a monk who are philosophizing about life together. So that's something I really like.
Mm.
I do tend to gravitate toward like dystopian, but like not necessarily like when Hunger Games came out and there was like 800 dystopian like YA books that came out like right after it, like chasing the trend.
Mm-hmm.
I tend to be like, I want a standalone that like has a commentary. Like one of my favorite books is Fahrenheit 451. So I'm like,
yes.
have a commentary,
Yes.
have something that you want to say, and then get in, get out. Like,
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
we can't discuss sci-fi without talking about Ray Bradbury.
Ray Bradbury, yeah.
Fahrenheit 451, but I feel like we read Fahrenheit in high school, and it's obviously an amazing novel, but there's so much more to his books, like The Martian Chronicles is also an excellent
Chronicles is
sci-fi.
really good. Yeah.
The Illustrated Man, like
Illustrated Man's good.
And he does a very interesting blend of science fiction and also like their like gothic, paranormal,
Yeah,
everything.
mixed with sort of like old nostalgia for like times that's gone by, and then he'll
Yeah.
mix in with the science fiction and horror type theming too.
Yeah.
He had a short story that I love that I can't remember the title. It's like Mars After the Rain or something like that. And I remember reading it in, I want to say middle school, of like they're on Mars and it rains like almost every day of the year. Like there's one day of sun and the kids are all really excited about it, and they end up locking one of the girls in the closet. So she doesn't get to go out. Yeah, so she doesn't get to go out. Yeah. It was like depressing. Of like social commentary of like she was like kind of like the weird girl like from a different planet.
Oh, okay.
Like it's like we had colonized other planets, and then like her family like comes, so she's like also the new kid. And like it was like I want to say it's like a 6-page short story, but like packed a punch.
Really hits you hard.
Yeah,
so
good.
Yeah, for me it's like lately it's been time travel type stories, which I know can be its own genre of stuff. So that could be like Doctor Who or like time loop stories. So you can do a lot of stuff with that. There was one I read. Give me 1 second. I just want to pull it up. It's called Time and Time Again by Chatham Greenfield. It's a YA sapphic. Actually, it's a romance even, because the main character uses the time loop to both build up her confidence, but also she inadvertently drags her crush into the time loop with her, so they can keep reliving the same day over and over and get away while doing a lot of things. There's also a pretty good one that's kind of realistic. It was YA for a while, but it might have migrated over into regular fiction now. It's Jumper by Stephen Gould. They made a movie out of it. It's about teleportation. A young teen figures out he can teleport, which is great because he can go anywhere. He can use it to. He's in a situation where he's at an abusive household, so he uses that to teleport away from that, which is fantastic. So he can go anywhere he wants in the world. The problem is he's still 17, so he doesn't have a driver's license or a social security number or anything like that. So it's like you have this fantastic ability that's science fiction, but you're still dealing with a real world situation of how do you find a place to live and a job and stuff like that. And that was really good. Graphic novels I've seen a lot for science fiction, and that's been really great, especially for like books that are set in space or on spaceships. So Across the Field of Starlight by Blue Delaquante is really great. That's about two, they're like space truckers, like in Aliens and stuff like that. There's these two teens, maybe young women, college age, who are in a relationship, and the book is about them transporting goods and things across space. And it's really good, and the illustrations are really beautiful. And then two books that I want to highlight by Tilly Walden, On a Sunbeam and Alone in Space. Hers are they're quieter, they're more melancholic, but like the way she illustrates just space in general, you get that vastness and like how big space is. So like that's really cool to see. And then I can't think of the one, there's one too that they talked about like the vastness of it. So for me, it's like both space as a concept and then like time travel. So essentially it's Doctor Who is really what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
So
I love, I really like a fun romp in space, very Doctor Who-esque. I also just love, talking about YA, teens in space. I really enjoy like the series Aurora Rising is really good, and they're chunky books, like they're very big, but they don't feel long because they're so fast-paced, and you get a lot of perspectives, and they're very lighthearted, very funny, and it's basically these teens at a space academy. They're all they all train to be like different operators on a ship, and they have different like one is an engineer, one's a science officer, one's like a weapons officer, and they all sort of get picked last for teams, and they're all together, and then they're about to go off and start their crew, and they meet this strange girl who is like stuck in a time warp, and she is mysterious, and we don't know anything about her. And there's a lot of adventure that happens. So Aurora Rising is a really good series. Also, Victories Greater Than Death by Charlie Jane Anders is a good one. Again, teens in space, fighting evil. You gotta love it. On the topic of time travel, have you read This Is How You Lose the Time War?
I have not. I know it's like somewhere on my list, but
I think it's on my TBR. I forget the name of the author, but I think it's called not Time and Time Again. Maybe One Day at a Time or something. There's a lot of time travel puns sometimes in science fiction.
Yeah.
So it might be One Day at a Time, but I know of How You Lose the Time War. I don't think I've read it.
Yeah, it's one of those books that's on a lot of lists, and it's very popular, and I fall into the category of people who don't often read popular books because but it holds up. It's really good. It's written in a very interesting way. It's an epistolary novel, so it's all written in letters back and forth between two agents, and they're agents on opposing sides of some kind of interstellar conflict, which they never really go into specifically what their goal is, which is also interesting. And so the chapters are really short, and also the letters aren't always written in like on paper. It'll be like written in like blades of grass or like in smoke, but they're left for the opposing agent to find, and it's really beautifully written. So I really love that one as well. What's our next question?
Speaking of time travel, Pride, Prejudice, and Pittsburgh is like very cute because she's like, it's like magical realism, but also like fantasy, like, and because it's got time travel sci-fi, where she ends up back in time in Pittsburgh. I forget what, like 1800s or something. So she's like running around and she's like, people are like freaking out because she's got pants and it's like a sapphic romance. I just enjoy like kind of fish out of water time travel shenanigans of like, what am I doing right now? How did I get here? And
yeah,
like
like
both
Back to the Future
either
or
going
something.
back in time or going forward in time, where you're like, I have to figure out what's going on, and like the misunderstandings are always just fun.
Yeah,
I agree.
Yeah.
So next question. What do you guys think about the genre bending, as in combining science fiction with other genres such as fantasy or horror?
I think, especially like you just said, like the blending, like sometimes it's so close together, or like depending on how you approach the situation, it could be sci-fi or fantasy, like time travel. If it's like the time machine, it's sci-fi, but it's like, ooh, I magically sent you back, it's fantasy, but like the plot and concept is the same. It's just how you got there. So I see why there's the overlap of like, we've kind of stepped left of reality and started doing something like changing the rules of how the world works. So I see how they overlap. And horror is always fun because like
Space is scary.
Yeah,
space is so scary.
Yeah, it's so
I'm
scary.
a little afraid of aliens, by which I mean a lot.
I am more afraid of the vast emptiness of space.
Yeah, that's
than aliens.
Yeah. I think the vastness too can like also like it can be
It's
beautiful, but it can also be terrifying too at the same time because you don't know what's out there.
It's the fear of the unknown that I'm like, I don't,
that unknown quality.
I don't like the unknown. I don't like surprises. So I'm like, space is scary. We don't know enough about it. And like, there is definitely like, we can't be alone in the universe. And we don't know what their deal is, or like if they get along with us. It's just all scary.
Yeah. Have you ever seen the movie Alien? Because I feel like you wouldn't like it then.
Yeah.
I love it.
Oh, you do?
Yes, I was like, good. They're aware space is scary.
Yeah. Space is scary. Alien is good. Aliens is good.
Also scary to me. So like, I was like, I don't like it.
The lesson is always listen to Sigourney Weaver.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yes.
Yep. And take a cat in space with you.
Oh yeah, and the cat is okay the whole time, which is good.
Yeah.
I really like the combination of science fiction and fantasy, and I think it's something we see less of, but it was done more in earlier generations. Like one author is Anne McCaffrey. She wrote a lot in the 80s. She has the Dragonflight series, which is, for all intents and purposes, a fantasy novel because it's about dragon riders and the magic of music, but it's set on another planet. Like the dragons are from another planet that they have colonized, so you get both science fiction and fantasy. And she has a lot of books like that. And another one I'm going to talk about, which I told you guys I was going to talk about, which came out last year, is Moonbound by Robin Sloan. Here's my pitch.
Go for it.
I love Robin Sloan. He's written Mr. Penumbra's 24-Hour Bookstore and Sourdough, which are both like magical realism novels, but this is like way longer and it's way different. It's set in a far future, and it is this young boy named Ariel, and he's sort of raised in this Camelot-esque town, but he's never been outside of it, so he's unaware of the world outside of this town, which he does explore later, and it very much gives like a Wizard of Oz type journey, like you're walking down the road and finding friends. But he meets this, he comes upon this wrecked ship, and on it is a sentient artificial intelligence, but it's not a computer-based intelligence. It is a sentient intelligence that lives in the mind of its host, but it's a relationship. It's a consensual relationship. Like the host takes on the mind, and they work together. And he sort of jumps into Ariel because he's like, "Oh my God, I've been stuck here forever. I'm hopping into this boy." And they form a friendship, and he sort of helps Ariel along his journey. And the greater world they explore has different elements of science fiction, like robots and spaceships, and sort of solar punk. Like it's like very post-apocalyptic, but in a positive way, where we use our trash and recycle, that kind of solar punk vibe. But there's also fantasy, like there are talking animals and so much more. There's so much in this book, and it's one of my favorite books of last year. It's an adult novel, but it's very accessible for teen readers. It's a good transitional book, and I recommend it to everybody. has a lot of hope, you know? It's like it's a very hopeful science fiction book with
Mm.
elements of fantasy throughout it. That's my
Yeah,
pitch.
that's great. That sounds awesome. Yeah, I like the blending of fantasy and science fiction horror. There's one we read in school. I want to say we read in sixth grade, but it was also a cold, either The Cold Equation or Cold Equations. It was a very short story, maybe like 2, 3 pages, and it's about a captain of a spaceship who's making a single person journey, and he has enough fuel just for himself, but there's a stowaway on board, a teen girl. And so he has to make this very hard decision. Does he, jettison his stowaway passenger, or does he try to survive with her, because he only has limited supplies and things like that. And that was that sort of first introduction of horror, in that sense, of like the hard choices and things like that, and that scariness, because they did talk about like that vastness of space and the coldness of it too. um while we were talking too, especially with fantasy, I think it fits, would be like the Wrinkle in Time
Oh
quartet.
yeah.
Yeah, that definitely fits, I think, because you've got elements of science fiction when they're dealing with that, and like going to other planets and dealing with some hard sci-fi or hard science elements in terms of like the
Yeah.
Tesseracts and things like that. So there's like a almost space travels,
Mhm.
time travel kind of element, but then there's also fantastical elements of creatures that can go into your mind and take over. And there's also surveillance elements too, because when they go to, spoiler alert, they go to the end of it, there's that it's IT, not the Stephen King one, that is always watching and always
Mhm.
monitoring, and like everyone is controlled by that.
Yeah. I
So,
would love to reread A Wrinkle in Time. I think
hmm
I need to. There's
yeah,
a lot of good science fiction in middle grade. There's also, I
yeah,
think, won a Newbery Award, the last Quintista,
yes,
which
I
is
read that. That was very good
yeah,
too.
which is
Yeah, I like that a lot.
and
Yeah.
there's also a book that's I want to read. It's called The Rover's Story, and it's the
Hmm.
book from the perspective of the Mars rover, which I think is adorable.
That's cute.
Oh,
Oh, now I remembered what it was I was thinking of before. So, K. 8 Applegate, Catherine Applegate, she wrote The One and Only Ivan, and I know we were talking about Animorphs before, but she wrote a much more older teen, probably college age set book. I want to say it was a series, came out early 2000s, probably no longer in print anymore. It's called Remnants,
Hmm.
and it's about these older teens, college age teens, who are like the first to travel through space,
Hmm.
and it goes horribly wrong. So it's space horror. It's the vastness of space. There's unfriendly AI, but there's also friendly AI too.
Hmm.
And then there's like a simulation of where they're going through, because the ship they go through is designed to travel them to a new planet, but it crash lands or malfunctions or something. And so the AI, which is called Mother, he takes these elements of like Hieronymus Bosch paintings, and if you've ever seen them, they're
Oh
very,
God.
yeah,
they're so
they're upsetting, they're weird, they're disturbing, and that becomes like what's the thing in Star Trek that makes the holodeck or something? I think
Mhm.
it's called. That makes the
okay.
things real. So that becomes their new lived-in reality. Why they're
Oh my
trying to figure
God.
out what to do. Yeah, and
Catherine Applegate doing everything.
she's doing it all, yeah. So, but
That's
like that
insane.
was a blend of different stuff too that I thought was really interesting, because
That
then it also got into like some weird fantasy elements too at the end too, which was interesting. So like there's that weird again, and I wonder if it's like even going back to like Star Wars, where that also has a lot of fantasy elements too. Like they're so science fiction and fantasy are so close to each other.
Mhm.
Also, maybe even horror is like a third one, like a
Yeah.
sandwich, so they
Yeah,
can just blend easily.
yeah, and it's really sad that a lot of these books we're talking about are out of print. Another one that
Mm,
an author I love is Tanith Lee, and she does that as well. Her YA series is called The Clady Diaries,
mm,
and there's like, it's this fantasy worldscape with like deserts and
mm-hmm,
magical everything, but there's also like spaceships.
mm-hmm.
But it's really hard to, there you have to buy the books used basically. And I
Yeah.
think we're definitely coming out of we're seeing more like sci-fi fantasy mashups, but I think we're in an era right now where everything has to be very clearly defined of is it sci-fi, fantasy, horror, YA, romance, like
Mm.
we need to label everything so specifically that there's not a lot of room for things that break the mold. but I do think we're seeing more of,
Hmm.
we're coming out of that.
Yeah. You mentioning the older series reminded me Neil Schusterman, who wrote Scythe. He wrote a YA. I cannot for the life of me remember the title of it, but like, and it's sci-fi where all the kids were supposed to have been born. Like there was a like supernova, like star collapse, and all the kids have what should have been the same birthday, but like things don't always go the way planned. But like they all have like weird powers, and then they get up sucked onto like somehow through a series of events end up together and then left behind on a class trip, and then and then sucked onto a different planet. And like I don't remember anything else about it, but like I remember being like,
is it called Unwind?
Possibly. I just remember finding it on the shelf.
Unwind is the one where they do like post-life abortions, essentially, for lack of a better term, because that's like pro-life and pro-choice, which also can tie into science fiction and horror here too. They eventually come to a term, both sides, like a civil war or something like that, and they come to a agreement, like a peace treaty kind of deal, that like children can be born, but before they turn 18, they can be unwound, which means they essentially become living like donor, like an organ donor. So like if someone's in a car accident and this teen is a person who's like unwound, essentially, they will take one of your arms or your eyes as like as you're still living, and they'll like go into the brain tissue and stuff like that. I want to say it's a trilogy. That I don't remember when that came out, but that was really good. That was scary, and there was a lot of like Frankenstein elements too involved. So like that kind of influence too is still reverting.
Neil Schusterman has written a lot of books.
Yeah,
he's been going for like
a long time.
30 years, like since the 80s, so like more than 30 years. So like the fact that I remember, like I can't remember the title of the book, it's like somewhere buried in my Goodreads, of like remember being like, this is creepy and unnerving when I read it. And then like years later him writing Scythe, and then me being like eventually making the connection of like, because I started going down a rabbit hole of like, what was that book I read? And I was like, oh, it's Neil Schusterman, who's still around. Like I just kind of assumed like, because it was old when I read it, like this author stopped writing. I was like, no, this man has never stopped writing like topical, like dark science fiction. I just stopped reading for a while.
Yeah. I want to bring up before I forget, another book that obviously is a huge science fiction staple, which is The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Yeah.
So much fun.
And it's something I recommend a lot because, it's short. And if you're kind of hesitant to get into something, and it's not super technical, some science fiction plays heavily on the technical aspects, the science parts of it, but Hitchhiker's Guide is more whimsical. More adventure, more funny.
It's silly, but it's fun. Yeah.
Life, the universe, and everything.
They're so easy to like read. Like they're quick. They're like, and they're so funny. Where you're just like, I've committed. Like you have to be like prepared for British humor, but like
yeah.
If you're like, I don't like British humor, this is not going to be the series for you.
But, no.
Solid British humor, like
But I feel like if you get a teen who's into Doctor Who or even like some of the new Star Treks, they'll like Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy as well, because they're already sort of primed for that. So
And we also have, of course, if you're into romance, there is science fiction romance. I know a book that came out, I think there are 3 or 4 books out by now. The first book is called Calamity by Constance Fay, and that is a like fun adventure in space, and there's a romance. I think back in the 2010s, there was another one called, I think, Shattered Stars. That was a romance in outer space. There's a book that just came out, and it's basically a science fiction take on the Titanic. It's like a spaceship that's called the Titan. And on the ship, there are someone unearthed some aliens that were frozen in ice.
Oh, I read it. I know
and
what it
they are
is.
what's it called? Something the Titan.
Titan of the Stars by E.K. Johnston. That's
Yes,
it.
and there's aliens on the ship that are like
Yes.
frozen in ice
So it's
caps,
like
and
Titanic
someone,
meets aliens.
yeah, it's like
Yeah.
someone thought it was a good idea to unearth these aliens
Of
and carry
course.
them on a ship full of
Yep.
people, and then the aliens break out and are causing
Yeah. Yeah.
chaos.
And
And I thought that sounds great.
yeah, it was very good. It's very readable. It's very like easy to pick up. I think there might be a second one coming out next year.
That was Titan of the Stars.
Titan of the Stars by E.K. Johnston, Johnston. She's written several Star Wars books too. The Queen Amidala series, the Queen's Shadow. She's good. She's written one for Ahsoka too. So like different characters and things like that. She again, very readable. Like this one was it was fun. It was like Titanic meets aliens, meets some other stuff. There was some sapphic characters in there. One character I want to say is asexual. Another character, there was friendly robots in there as well. But
Cool.
again, there's also like a Sigourney Weaver type character that they don't listen to. It's like, you shouldn't bring the aliens on board. And they're like, well, that's what happens when you don't listen.
To Sigourney Weaver.
I know.
The only exception is if you're in holes.
Yeah,
the book
true.
Holes, and Sigourney
Yeah.
Weaver's trying to make you dig holes in the desert.
Yeah, that one you shouldn't listen to.
It's the one exception. Which, by the
Oh.
way, what's his name? Oh God, well, who wrote Holes?
Louis Sachar.
Louis Sachar. He just came out with a new book after like a million years.
I know. I
Did he?
read
That's
it. I was
awesome.
yeah, it's an adult novel too.
Oh, cool.
It gives fairy tale vibes.
Yeah, it's The
nice.
Magician of Tiger Castle.
Oh,
I do not love
cool.
it the way I love Holes, because I think Holes is a perfect book, like 10 out of 10, no notes, like amazing book. But very much fairy tale vibes, very much like you can it feels like he wrote it, obviously, because he did, but like sometimes you're like, it's been years and I changed my style. Enjoyable, quick read, like it's not like a billion pages long, and it's like, yeah, fairy tale vibes of like the protagonist is telling the story of his past, and like a blend of fantasy, and like he's the magician, and he's like talks about he's like, people don't believe in magic anymore.
Aw.
He's like, it was real.
You know what's another fun sci-fi mashup? Again, this is not a YA novel, but I've read it, and it is, it's accessible. It's nothing too difficult about it, and it's called oh God, now I'm blanking. Why can't I never remember anything today? You guys talk about something while I try to figure it out.
Hang on, let me see what else was one I wanted to talk about real quick. Hang on.
Wait, I remember it. I
Okay,
remember
go
it.
ahead.
It's called Station Eternity.
Okay.
And it is basically, it's by Mur Lafferty, and it is basically a murder mystery in space. It's this girl, and she, her backstory is really funny. It is that she, when she was living on Earth, somehow always wound up in situations where murders were happening around her, and she would always end up solving them. So it's sort of meta in the sense of like, why is this one person keep solving mysteries in Cozy Mysteries? But because of this, her life sort of like ended up in shambles because she just keeps being around death. And so she decides to immigrate to a space station. She's one of the first humans on it. And she thinks she's escaped this curse of like death happening all around her. But then something happens on the space station and she gets embroiled in another mystery. And there's all aliens she's interacting with, and they're very interesting, and it's very cool. It was very different.
That sounds cool. One I just remembered was It's a Complicated Love Story Set in Space by Sean David Hutchinson. This one is a good one. It's like a rom-com set in space, but these two boys wake up on a space station. They're the only ones there. So it's kind of got like that creepiness of like, oh, you're alone in space. What happened? How did we get here? So they don't know if they've been like teleported from Earth or like another planet or anything like that. There is an AI component and like a sense of being watched because there's cameras everywhere. So it's actually like a reality show. So it's got like that kind of manipulative editing type situation going on. So where they're trying to force a romance, and they end up, falling in love. a little bit. And it's very sweet. It's cute. It's standalone, so it's like very easy to pick up and simple. So he tends to write some kind of magic realism or science fiction elements in most of his books too. So, but this one was like really simple to pick up, and I enjoyed it. And I think it's maybe like 300 or 400 pages. It's a little chunky, but not like you can knock it off in an afternoon if you've got the time, I think.
Cool. So I think we're getting it to an hour here recording. Are there any more last books you'd like to highlight before we wrap up? I know Chris wanted to talk about a Sarah Gailey book, right?
Yes. Okay. So Sarah Gailey writes YA and adult. So some of her stuff kind of blends back and forth. And we didn't mention like speculative fiction, but she, at one point, there had been a like bill, something that was trying to get passed during Buchanan, the 15th president's time, of having hippos brought and like released in the swamps of Louisiana. And that obviously did not happen. But it's, what if that bill did get passed and now suddenly there's like hippos in the swamps of Louisiana, and like how that's affecting things, and how that's like, instead of people riding horses, they ride hippos. But like hippos are also very scary because they're like very, very, very aggressive and territorial. So like there's feral hippos. So it's like a heist adventure, but with like set in like in the alternative universe where there were hippos. So they're trying to have this heist adventure while like being very emotionally attached to their like pet hippo horse situation, and having to deal with like feral hippos and like the crime boss and like all this stuff. And it's just like a fun series where you're just like, what is happening? How did we end up with hippos? And then of course I went down the rabbit hole of like, talk to me more about this hippo bill that didn't get passed.
And what's that book called?
A River of Teeth.
Cool.
So it's short. It's like a novella, so I think it's like 100 pages. And we have it on Hoopla. And I don't remember anything in it where I'm like, oh, this is not okay for YA. But I did also read it like a couple years ago. But like, it's so fun. And like, she writes enough YA where I'm like, yeah, it's a good like stepping stone.
Yeah, there's a lot of books that really are like on the line. You know, they're technically in adult fiction, but they're very accessible, very readable for YA readers. What about you, Ryan? Do you have anything you'd like to highlight?
Yeah, I got two that I read this year. One that actually ended up being one of my summer reading picks was the Second Chance of Darius Logan by David F. Walker. So it's science fiction, but it's also set realistically in like the real world. But the science fiction elements come from superheroes. So in this reality, superheroes and time travel and space travel and all those elements are real. So like imagine it as a real person set in like the Marvel universe or the DC universe. So the main character is Darius Logan. He's a troubled teen. He ends up in a situation that's gone wrong, and he's looking at serious jail time. So for that, he's given this second chance program where he gets to work with superheroes and working with them and helping them go into space and things like that, and develop elements for safe travel into space and things like that, because some heroes can go into space by themselves, some need like a protective suit. And it's really interesting, and it deals with the ramifications of being like a quote unquote troubled teen and things like that. And so like that was really good, and I've recommended it a lot to our teens who we visit in JDC and other elements like that, so they find a lot of similarities with that. And then another one that deals with aliens, but also uses aliens as a metaphor for trans or non-binary teens, is Galaxy, the Prettiest Star. It's a graphic novel by Jadzia Axelrod. It's part of the DC Pride Initiative imprint. So it's a standalone graphic novel. So like Superman or Batman or nobody like that makes an appearance. So the main character is fleeing a alien civil war, and they're on Earth, and she is the princess of this galaxy, and she's disguising herself as a teen boy. using like a cloaking device or something like that. And then eventually, obviously, that's the metaphor for being trans, using that to discover yourself, your true identity, and things like that. And it's a very sweet book. There's a talking dog involved in it. He's got there's a little friendly robot involved. There's very like a sweetness in terms of both the illustrations and the way the story is, obviously, for being pro-LGBT and accepting people as they are and coming to know oneself truly and wholly. And it's a very like great, simple book to get into too. It's not very long either. I want to say it's maybe 80 pages.
Awesome. So I have a couple I want to highlight before we end up. 3 actually. One is a graphic novel, like you were talking about. It is called In the Infinity Particle by Wendy Zhu. And it is a girl, and she is moved to a colony on Mars. She's into work. She wants to work with robotics. She has a very cute little robot sidekick who looks like a little moth, who is adorable. And she goes to work for this robot scientist who has, and in this world, robots don't look like humans. That's like a kind of like a rule, that they mostly look like animals, and they're all very friendly. But the scientist she works for does have an assistant who is a robot who resembles a human. And the girl starts to become friends with this robot boy, and they kind of, a little bit of a romance starts happening, but there's a lot of focus on the relationship between this robot teenage boy and his creator / mother, and they sort of have a toxic relationship that gets explored. And it really delves into the idea of like what makes someone human, what makes someone sentient, what gives them autonomy, creator versus creation. And it's very cute and very enjoyable, so I loved that one. There's also a YA novel called Goddess in the Machine by Laura Beth Johnson. And I think this one has a really cool premise. It's this girl, and she is with a bunch of other humans. They are sent on a journey to the stars, and they are all put in stasis pods for the duration of the journey. She wakes up in the pod. She is not where she thought she would be. She's on an unidentified planet, and for the past however many 100 years, her stasis pod has sort of been, I guess it was found on this planet, and civilizations have been worshiping her as like a sort of like a lost princess in this coffin-shaped pod. And when she wakes up, she's basically treated like a goddess, and she's just trying to figure out what happened to her spaceship, where she is, what all of this implies. Which I think is a crazy cool premise for the start of a book. And then the last one I have is called The Infinity Quartz by Akemi Dawn Bowman. And this is, there's a trope in Japanese fantasy fiction where characters go to another world, but that world is the afterlife. And so it's this girl who spoiler alert, passes away, and the afterlife is this place called infinity, and it's where human consciousness goes when their bodies die. And there is this like AI, sort of not specifically AI, but this AI reminiscent assistant who is sort of taking care of them in this afterlife, and they're called Ophelia. But the main girl starts getting the sense that Ophelia maybe isn't on their side completely and might have ulterior motives. So those are my 3 I wanted to highlight. All right, we think we're all good? Gonna wrap up?
Yeah, I think that was good.
I think we talked a lot about sci-fi.
Awesome. Thank you all for listening to Waves of YA. We hope you enjoyed our discussion about sci-fi books. And we'll see you next time.
Thanks for joining us today. Be sure to check out the Ocean County Library's website for more podcasts and events. All titles mentioned in today's episode can be found through the Ocean County Library, free with your library card. Until next time, happy reading.